Hey, y'all, breaking news. There is yet another rebellion from the furthest right, the most MAGA segment of the Republican House caucus. Marjorie Taylor Greene has filed a motion to vacate. She is done with Moscow Mike Johnson. She is ready to move on to somebody else. And we are back in Kevin McCarthy Boogaloo Part 2. Let's just back up and explain what is happening here. So Congress is once again dealing with brinksmanship on funding the government, keeping the government open, as well as the support, which we've talked about a bunch here, for our allies in Ukraine. And there is a lot of consternation at this on the Republican side. There's a big part of the Republican members of Congress that is nihilistic, that is ready to have a government shutdown, that is ready to burn everything down, that doesn't want to fund Ukraine. Mike Johnson went along to go along with those folks for a long time. But once he got ascended into the speaker's chair, all of a sudden you have some actual responsibilities. You have to actually do things in theory when you're the Speaker of the House. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and that ilk, they don't want to do things, okay? They want to tear down. Eventually, we all knew this was going to happen. Eventually, this was going to come to a head. To be honest, I thought they'd give Mike a little more leash because they wouldn't want to just look like a total clusterfork in an election year. But the crazies just... about every few months, like, the crazies need to spill somebody's blood, in order to demonstrate that they are the one true members of MAGA. So here is how things stand. There is this extension, this government spending bill, about $1.2 trillion that Mike Johnson was working on with the Democrats. It did not include Ukraine funding. That's a separate issue. And here is what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say about that after she filed the motion to vacate.
This bill was basically a dream and a wish list for Democrats and for the White House. It was completely led by Chuck Schumer, not our Republican Speaker of the House, not our conference, and we weren't even allowed to put amendments to the floor to have a chance to make changes to the bill. I filed the motion to vacate today, but it's more of a warning and a pink slip. I respect our conference. I paid all my dues to my conference. I'm a member in good standing, and I do not wish to inflict pain on our conference and to throw the House in chaos. But this is basically a warning, and it's time for us to go through the process, take our time, and find a new Speaker of the House that will stand with Republicans and our Republican majority instead of standing with the Democrats.
That's a warning. If it's a warning, if it's a warning, does that mean that you're not going to go through and force this vote?
No, I will. There's
nothing that can convince you to back off.
There's not a time limit on this. It doesn't have to be forced and throw the House into chaos. I don't want to put any of our members in a difficult place like we were for 3.5 weeks. We're going to continue our committee work. We're going to continue our investigations. There's a lot of good investigations going that have to be able to proceed, and the American people deserve that. But I'm not saying that it won't happen in 2 weeks or it won't happen in a month or who knows when. But I am saying the clock has started. It's time for our conference to choose a new speaker.
All right. So, there you go. Giveaways to the Democrats and, who knows, waving hands and we can't fund the government. We can't do this. We need a real, true conservative in there. And so now Mike Johnson is staring down the barrel of the same question Kevin McCarthy had. Okay, can he get to 218 votes? Well, there's a problem. Remember how small the majority was for Kevin McCarthy? Well, it's even smaller for Mike Johnson because, for starters, Kevin McCarthy quit Congress. Also, Ken Buck, who was unhappy with the unseriousness of his colleagues and unhappy with impeachment, and who himself voted to overthrow McCarthy, but for different reasons than the crazy MAGAs did. He didn't like that Kevin McCarthy was not being straight on election denialism. So Ken Buck, who used to be this shows you how far right the Republican conference has gone. Ken Buck was a Tea Party member that used to be considered on the far right, but this has all gotten too crazy for him. So he just quit Congress. Got so crazy. So Buck's gone. McCarthy's gone. George Santos got expelled and replaced by Tom Suozzi, a Democrat. And then another guy went to run some college in Ohio. So the margin is tiny. And Mike Johnson can't afford to lose anybody on the Republican side and keep his speakership unless this time the Democrats help him. Now, this is going to be an interesting little bit of gamesmanship we have over the next few weeks. What do the Democrats do? What does the responsible governing party do? You know, when it was McCarthy, I felt very strongly, and many members of Congress and the Democratic side, a couple of whom I spoke to, also felt very strongly that they weren't going to bail him out. Like that Kevin McCarthy's behavior after January 6th was so noxious, so indefensible. The fact that he went down to Mar-a-Lago after the attack on the Capitol to try to make amends with Trump, which was one of the first olive branches, as Liz Cheney has pointed out in her book. Just like that behavior was too far gone for the Democrats to, in good conscience, vote to save him. So many people might also say, well, wouldn't that also apply to Mike Johnson, who was helping Trump organize the coup, basically. On the legal side, he was working with the attorneys general who were trying to challenge the legal votes of people in other states like Pennsylvania. And I could see that argument. I could see that argument that Mike Johnson is too gross to save and kind of let the Republicans wallow in their own shit for a while. I could see that. But there's another argument. We are an election year for Biden. Can we get actual concessions out of Mike Johnson? Could the Democrats go to Mike Johnson and say, hey, you just have to put these votes on the floor. You got to put the Ukraine vote on the floor. Maybe you got to put the Ukraine immigration deal vote on the floor. Maybe there's another vote that Democrats feel like they have majority support for, but Mike Johnson has been blocking, and say, look, we want different rules. We want open floor rules. We want to be able to vote on this. Can make the Democrats look, more bipartisan, more like a governing party. It can solve some problems. I mean, frankly, when it comes to Ukraine, sometimes the actual substance of the policy is more important than the politics and the optics here. The Ukrainians need our weapons and our resources now, given the state of the war over there. So Adam Kinzinger, friend of the Bulwark, former Republican congressman, was on the January 6th committee, voted to impeach Donald Trump. He made that argument just today on his Substack, saying the Democrats should extract a price from Mike Johnson to save him. Earlier, just a little bit ago on CNN, Tom Suozzi, who I previously mentioned, the Democrat from New York, expressed that he is looking like he would probably vote to support Mike Johnson because he wants to get these issues passed. Why don't we just listen to a little bit from Tom Suozzi?
The Democrats will have to choose if they're going to have to vote to oust Mike Johnson or if they're going to vote to keep him in there. Congressman Suozzi, Democrat of New York, will you vote to keep Mike Johnson in as Speaker?
Yes, I will.
Why is that?
Because it's absurd. He's getting kicked out for doing the right thing, keeping the government open. It has 2/3 support of the Congress, and the idea that he would be kicked out by these jokers is absurd.
Will there be other Democrats who join you think?
I hope so.
I think that's rational. I think that Hakeem Jeffries, though, I think that if I was the Democrats, I probably wouldn't be popping off on CNN about the strategy quite yet. I'd get with Hakeem Jeffries and try to figure out what is the best way to marry the political interests and the policy objectives, which are both very important. And how can the Democrats maximize the pain on the Republicans for their own just complete inability to do anything? They're just kind of toddler tantruming in the House of Representatives. How can Democrats maximize the pain on Republicans for their behavior while also getting some of these policy objectives done? That is going to be, turns out, thanks to Marjorie Taylor Greene, probably the big story of next week. So we'll be back here. Make sure you subscribe to the page. And I'll be back on Monday for your Daily Bulwark podcast. Don't miss that either. We'll see you soon. Hey, if you like this video and our content, I'd love for you to become a Bulwark Plus member. You get bonus podcasts, you get bonus newsletters, you get bonus takes from me that maybe don't come up on the YouTube feed. You can try it out for free at thebulwark.com/free trial. The link is below in the description. We'd love to have you as a member of our community. We have great commenters and great opportunities for people who want to protect democracy.